Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, the screenwriting step-by-step project, episode number 108, in which we are starting the rewrite. My name is Glenn Gers. I come to you every Monday through Friday, if I can make it, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Unit, walking you through the process of writing a TV pilot script, just as a demonstration. Doesn't matter what kind of script you're writing, because this is just about the process. I am trying to teach a lesson about screenwriting by showing you, letting you look over my shoulder, letting you share my screen every day as I work on a script, from rough idea through outline, through the rough draft to today. We are going to start rewriting that rough draft. The idea is to let you see the everyday process, the minute-by-minute, step-by-step work that it takes to write a script. It's not a particular kind of script. It doesn't matter. It is not the best way to do it. It is not the only way to do it. It's just a way to help you break down an intimidating, overwhelming process into small steps that you can try and follow along with, adapt to your own uses, make it your own. Every writer does things their own way. Every writer thinks their own way. Every writer writes their own kind of project. Every project needs its own things. So therefore, there is no absolute rule. I don't try to teach this is the result you should get. I'm just saying, if you want, this is a process that might help you. Good day, Phil J. Glad to see you. Welcome. It is great to be here. We have finally, after 108 episodes, made our way through the rough draft. It is 90 pages long, which is 30 pages. It is 50% too long. It has to be cut down by 1/3. And luckily, that won't be a problem because I overwrote ridiculously while I was writing it. I just followed whatever instinct and impulse I had, because the most important thing about the rough draft is just getting something there. As William Goldman famously told a story, you need something to change. You can't write it all at once. This is really important. Nobody does it all at once. No one gets it all at once. And that is why you do practice in small steps. Small steps is the most important thing, because all work, all creative writing comes down to writing just a little bit at a time. The thing that's in front of you, you get that done, you keep working, you'll get the whole thing done. Hello, Larry. Yay, YouTube on the job. Hello, Jenny. I'm no longer Mr. Glenn. I like that. Cool. So, as I said, we are going to start the rewrite. This is momentous. This is exciting. It's a whole new process. You guys have watched me outline it, and then you watched as we step by step, scene by scene, try to rough out a very, very rough draft. Now, here's what I'm doing next. This is the next part. If you will notice, I made a new folder. It's called Draft 2. Because I have the rough draft and all the stuff that we worked on, the outline and the overview and the text, that's all in here. But now I made copies of all those things. I made new notes and a new outline and a new copy of the text. I left all the old stuff here because you never know. You might want to say, oh, I cut something out. I made a mistake. I forgot it. So I never throw out that original step. In fact, I never throw out any step. You keep every step because you can always go back to it. It's digital. You can have hundreds of thousands of pages on a single flash drive. So why not just keep it there in a folder called Rough Draft? And from now on, we will be working in a folder called Draft Number 2. So that's what we're going to start doing now. Hello, I write. Hello, Robert. Hello, Mookie MC. And hello, Andrea. It's good to see you all as we begin this rewrite. So I was just explaining that I've started a new folder for the second draft so that I don't accidentally throw away something valuable. It's just easier to make copies and work in the copy. Hello, this is Kitschy. Hello, Naja. Wow, everybody's showing up for this. This is great because we are going to be working on the notes. I'm reading here's what I did. I opened up this script to page 1. And I started reading. Now, I did this earlier today because really, you guys don't want to watch me read. As fun as this whole process is, actually watching me read is not worth it. Hello, Natasha. Okay, so let us get to it. So what I did was I read through it, and then I opened up a new project. Yes, I opened up a new document, which I called Rough Draft Notes. And I made it, I put that as the heading. And then I just started to type all these notes, which I'll go through with you. The first note, up at the top, I put my general notes. Like as I'm reading through, if there's just an overall thing that I need to remind myself of, I put it in a section that I call general notes. And the first notes I notice is there's some stuff where I'm way over describing. I'm just sort of generally putting in the whole world, and that's not good storytelling. And the other thing is way too long because I need a 60-page script. I got a 90-page rough draft. Something's got to go. That's okay. Hello, Gerardo. Thank you so much. Yes, I feel great that we got to this. This is exciting. It's also really fun to get to a new part of the process. So as I began to write, I started to take these notes, and the first thing that happened was I made a note that he sounds like a radio. This was too negative a description. He's got thick lens glasses. I was overdoing it, and so I wrote a little note to myself. I wrote, "Make him cool." Like a late night FM DJ. And then I noticed that I had typed literally the next paragraph was, he speaks intently, dramatically, like an old FM radio late night DJ. So kudos for me on the having a consistent vision, but the read through first idiot, as Larry is asking, I'm calling me stupid because I started to take notes without reading it. And then I was literally repeating words saying, oh, you should write this when I had already written it. So I wanted you to see that the first note I gave myself was, slow down, read the damn scene, and then write your notes. Don't read it and stop every little line and say, oh, I've got a note on this line. I've got a note on this line. Because the truth is, you need to get the big picture first. You can go back and fix words and fix sentences later. The most important thing you need to do in your first read through is just read through and write down your impressions, your general feelings. So that is the first thing I did was I went through and I had the first note, and yeah, I got into little things like, and then I started doing it, reorganize and simplify. The whole thing is this whole scene is a monologue, what I like to call an aria, in the sense that in an opera, there will, and honestly, I don't think I have ever heard a full opera. I don't know anything about opera except the concepts of opera sort of apply. And that is, now and then a character will have a big song, a moment when they really take the stage and have their solo moment. And that's an aria. And so I think of this scene, this speech, as an aria. Now and then I will give someone an aria, a big number, a big monologue. And the thing about this monologue is that it's badly organized, because I was just writing down whatever I could to get the beginning, the building blocks of the speech. So I wrote all this stuff. It's a huge speech. It's way too long. By the way, if you guys want to see what I'm talking about, one of the things I've done is every week I've been posting on my website a copy of the script. And so now I have posted the complete rough draft. Let me see if I can find... It's not here. I used to have a little thing where I said where it was. Here's the deal. I will show you later, but the complete draft is there for you to look at if you want to download the PDF and read the whole thing, which I honestly don't recommend because it's a mess. But anyway, that's what I did. Was I read through it, and I realized I want to start with the poisoning. First of all, it's very dramatic, and also that's the thing that the audience has to remember when he gets poisoned. The details of the poisoning are what's going to matter from one of the main things from this speech. Reorganize and simplify this speech in order to take the few important pieces. Okay? He has to tell us how the first serial killer that he learned about, which is this guy, set his life on a path which has led to this. The problem is that between his childhood of hearing about the serial killer and his becoming a podcaster about the serial killer, he was on another path. He was a rock and roller. He was a radio DJ. So I need to think about how that life is a path of denial. It's a path of fighting the fear that this character felt when he first heard about this serial killer. So that was the first note I made was, that was the character step that I didn't have when I wrote the script. So then I asked myself some questions. What gave him the transition from just being this rock and roll radio DJ to obsessively hunting a serial killer and making a podcast about it? And I thought it was his failure. Or possibly he's being absolutely blunt about, like, podcasts are the new rock stars. Podcasters are the new rock stars, and I still want to be a rock star, and so that's what I'm doing. I have to think about that. I'm not sure. I have to figure out what it is that this character is telling us about himself. Because I don't believe, like, there's a part of this speech where he talks about, let me see if I can find it, in this long, long speech. He gets to this part of the speech where he's talking about citizen journalism and being the person who's going to connect with others on websites and chat rooms and bulletin boards. Those are all things that are true of other characters in the story. So what I realized is, why would I want yet another one here? The thing I want to do is have him not be part of that movement. He doesn't really know these people. He's more of a solitary wacko. And then later, the other people in the group can talk about these ideas. So those are my first notes on this first scene, was that this scene, it's really long. It's 5 pages of a speech. There is no such thing in almost any filmed, anything except maybe a filmed play, where you have a 5-page speech. It's just insane. That would probably last 9 or 10 minutes. So I have got to cut this down. So I looked at what parts of it are really valuable, and I started to make that note to figure out what the point is of this speech. There's 2 or 3 main points. The rest of it's got to go. I also made a note. I cut and pasted this out of the script because I had written, I don't know if you remember, sometimes I will write like this. I will write a note and I will put it in bold and italics so that I can just remember it. When I'm rereading it, I'll find this note. So I did that. Now I want to cut that out of the script and put it in the notes. So that's what I have here. These are the things I had actually written into the script at some point. I had realized, oh wow, I wrote this whole speech about the first victim. Okay, the first victim. And I realized I just done that because, you tell things in order. You tell things from beginning to end. But the truth is, I really have to tell about the last victim. It's about a serial killer who was not caught, a serial killer who went cold. And so therefore, the most important thing is his last victim. And the dummy is yelling again at myself because I can be pretty hard on myself in my notes. And also, he may have set up a countdown. He may say, in 3 more episodes, I'm going to reveal the new episode, the evidence, because I think that'll help. Okay, I'm going to take a second here because you guys have been talking a lot in the chat. And I haven't been reading it. So I'm going to quickly check it out. First of all, thank you, Larry. I know the feeling. I'm going to just take a moment here to urge you. Never, ever rewrite in a document that you wrote. Make a copy, save the original, and rewrite in a copy. That way you have all the drafts and you can work between them. And if you accidentally delete something, you can find it again. And also, it's just mentally healthier to have just like you would have if it was paper. You would have a copy of each draft. Not a bad thing. I urge you to never rewrite in the original document. Make a copy and then move on. Okay, so watching a writer read a rough draft is like hanging out with a painter and watching them watch the paint dry. Exactly. Okay, then Janae asked about showrunners. Do creators of show have the power, or is it networks? Research what a creator does for a living, control the writing and directing. There are several books about the structure of television at this moment. There is one, hang on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. I was looking at my bookshelves to see. I have a book. I believe it's called Showrunners. I'm going to type that in here. Showrunners. I believe that there is. I believe that there is a book called Showrunners, and it's interviews with many different showrunners. The book is actually kind of old now. It's 3 or 4 years old, I believe. But I believe you'll learn a lot by reading that book. I think there's actually also a video version, like a little documentary. Okay, so because the real answer to who's got control, it's so complicated. Each network, each show has a different structure. Each type of streaming and networks are all different. Every network has its own rules. So there really isn't a general answer to who has the power. Also, it depends on the individual power of the people. Certain showrunners are far more powerful. Shonda Rhimes probably has more power than a lot of network executives, whereas somebody who's doing their first show that is not a hit probably doesn't. Okay, excited to see the rewrite. Yeah, not sure why, but you know what? I actually think it is exciting because this is the real stuff of writing. The truth is, and I actually said this the other day. Let me see if I can pull this up. Yeah, here it is. Professionals know rewriting is part of the job. Being able to change your work is crucial to being a writer, especially a professional writer. You need to learn that you have to plan on rewriting it. When I write something, I know I am going to rewrite it at least 10 times, probably 30 or 40 times. This script, if I was really going to take it all the way to trying to sell it, if I was not just writing it as a demonstration for you guys, I would expect to do at least 5 to 10 drafts. Okay. So, let me just see. Khan says, I've learned so much from it. Yay, thank you. You are entirely welcome, Khan. I'm so glad. Are the bolded items in your notes more meaningful in a certain way? I'm just trying to get my own attention. The bolded items in the script are, I always the first time I introduce a character's name, I bold it and capitalize it, because that I'm really trying to say characters. Characters are important. This is an important person. This note is just a note that I will cut out and put in the note here. See, that's it. Because those things in bold are really just notes to myself. Okay. Are there any holes in the destination aspects of the first draft? Or is it just a matter of changes, adjustments to the journey and getting there? No. There are big holes in the sense that the rough draft, I cannot stress how much it is the outline, and each draft is not a fixed thing. It is a work in progress. When you are working on any kind of screenwriting, it's constantly changing. Sometimes 5 drafts in, you can restructure the whole thing, reconceive of it. Sometimes between drafts, you meet a producer and they say, gee, can we cut out this whole character? So never think of it as a fixed, locked, absolute thing. In fact, I believe one of the biggest things that you have to decide on in a writer is, as a writer of professional work, is there something in each script that you think is the unbreakable piece? Is there something that you say to yourself, I would rather just throw out this whole script than change that scene? Because that'll happen sometimes. You'll get some scene like, this scene says the most important thing in this project. And what you want to do is make a mental note. Okay, this whole script is really building to these 3 scenes. And as long as I can do what I have to get those scenes to work, everything else is flexible. The worst part about being a professional in Hollywood is there's nothing that they consider unbreakable. Everything is negotiable, and literally you can totally lose sight of what the whole point of a project is. But luckily we're not at that place. And so as I go through the rough draft, I'm like, there's a piece I want to protect. There's a line or a scene that's really cool, and I want to keep that, and I'm willing to rewrite the whole thing to get that piece to work. This is Kitschy got the PDF open. Yay! Okay. Okay, where is the PDF? All right, let's take a moment, and I will answer that. Hang on. I'm going to show you how to get to this document. All right, hold on. Okay, so, okay, this is my website, writingforscreens.com. Oh, it's looking really bad now. So if you go down, you will find these boxes. See them? And this one here, creative. That one, see it? Creative over in the corner. Oh, I guess you can't see it that well because it's in the corner. But there's one called, it's a creative down in the lower right-hand corner. creative. And if you click on that, this is going really slow. It will get to this grid of stuff. See? All these different things. I've got scripts here. And this one here, it says draft and outlines for the Untitled Podcast Killer Project. Right here, this box. If you click on that, you will see right here the full draft. Plus, I've got every week's drafts all since the very beginning, if you, for some reason, think you want to read through them. But here, the full rough draft exists. Okay, so that's where you can find it. Boom. Oops. Okay. Let me get out of this too. And back to... I'm just reading you guys. Okay. Larry says, what's infuriating is forgetting the password to your archive. Don't lock it up then. Honestly, who's going to steal it? You know, there's some things you shouldn't password because that way you don't have to worry about it. Right. The PDF is in the creative section of writingforscreen.com. Writing for Screens. Yes, the Writers Guild YouTube channel has tons of interviews with writers of all kinds, and also, of course, Film Courage. Film Courage has tons of interviews. Also, the Austin Screenwriting Conference, they have a thing called On Story. Let me see if I have that. I think I actually have that one. Yeah, here it is. On Story by the Austin Film Festival Screenwriting Conference. They have a lot of interviews with really good writers. Likewise, Film Courage. These are places where you can find information about showrunners. That's what that was about. Okay. Watch the Nancy Myers interview on the Writers Guild page. She brings a 70-page outline and a 250-page rough draft. Yeah, exactly. That is what happens. Okay, I'm going to very briefly answer this question, then I got to get back to work. How can I write in a character that is preoccupied while another character is tying his feet together without him noticing? How do you write that? You write exactly what you just said. You write, Murray is playing cards, intently trying to figure out what the next card is going to be, while underneath the table, Willie ties his feet together. That's how you write it. You just write what you want to say. It's the easiest way to do it. You can always finesse it when you get it, but the main thing is just try and write down what it is you want to say in a sense of things are happening. That's the main thing. People are doing things. That's how you want to describe them. Okay, let's get back to this because we've only gotten into this first scene. So the first notes I wrote were that. Then page 5, and this is important. Try and be good to yourself. Try and be nice to yourself. When I got to page 5, I got to the end of this long speech, and then I described George opening the garage door, and we reveal that it's a garage. This is too much description, but I did say to myself, reveal of the garage, nice. And like the idea of it, the point of it is what I was trying to tell myself. This is a good thing. It's really important in your notes that you tell yourself what's worth keeping. You don't just trash yourself. You also say, oh, this is a good beat. This is a good line, because you need to remember what the good stuff is, and then you build around that. So, see, section 2 is a section where George goes and he dies. He gets poisoned, and I've described it. And it's once again over-described. There's too much of this stuff, it's reading too much like a story and not enough like a script. It's not broken into actions enough. So one of the things I wondered is, can I somehow call back the speech that began this episode where he's talking about the poison? That was why I wanted to emphasize that in the speech, because here he's going to have it. And I think I have to decide how I want to do it. Do I want to intercut it or voice over it, or actually cut like flashbacks? And I think that's actually going to be the way to do it, is intercut flashback bits. That's my guess. So I wrote down a note, maybe try that. And the next scene. So George dies. It's okay. Not great, but I'm getting there. And then, once again, way over described. This is more than we need. It's too slow a read. And then we get some action. She goes into an elevator and she meets Brenda. And so when I read this scene, I realized this scene is about two people who are in an elevator. They're next to each other. And then one of them can't resist saying, oh, I know you. I'm going to have a meeting with you tomorrow. And the problem is, I have the feeling that the scene is too long for an elevator ride. Like, the building would have to be like 6 miles high. So I just made a little note. Maybe part of that scene is as they're leaving the elevator. Hey, Maria, glad to see you. Okay. So what we're doing, Maria, welcome, is I am reading. I spent much of today reading through. I read through about the first third of the script. And with every scene, I started to make some notes for myself about things I want to change. And also, like I said, always when you are writing notes to yourself, don't forget to note the things that you want to keep, because rewriting is not all about getting rid of things. Partly it's about knowing what to keep, knowing to say, oh, in this pile of junk, there's a gem. That gem is why I wrote the first draft. The reason that I threw down whatever came into my mind is so that when I read it later, I would say, that thing. I wasn't sure what was going to be the best part when I wrote it. I just wrote whatever came into my head. But now, stepping back, I can see what the good part is. This is really important. This is the key to rewriting. Rewriting, there is not a finished version waiting for you to find it. There is not a right version that you are like, oh, I have to fix everything that's not part of the right version. You don't know yet what it's going to be. With every step, you steer it towards a new destiny. It's like multiple universe kind of stuff. If you were to change something in one step of the rewrite, it would become a different thing. It is not fixed. It is not set. It is just a constant process. And part of that process is saying to yourself, this is the good part. This is the reason I wrote this. This is the part where this character comes alive. And so you really want to look at your own work and say, oh, that's a good line, or oh, that's a good character. Now I know Madeline better than I did. When I wrote this scene, I discovered how much Madeline likes her job. She gets into this thing and she's saying, where does she say it? Oh, here. I like where I am. I like my job. More pressure? I don't think so. Yeah, I like what I do all day. I like my desk. This is the point. Madeline is very, very set. Elevator turns into walk and talk. No, I hate walk and talks. I hate them. They're going to stand still in that lobby. Gosh darn it. I think walk and talks are a disaster. I think they are a way that people try to cover up for the fact that a dialogue scene is a dialogue scene. and I don't think walking covers that up. I think you want a dialogue scene to be a dialogue scene. So the end of my script is, yes, when you are writing, you are learning as you go. So everything you're doing is building a thing that didn't exist yet. And so part of the job when you're doing the rewrite is to recognize what you did, to say, oh, that part works. Huh. Now that's a funny scene. Like this scene, I didn't know what this scene was going to be before I wrote it. You can look back at that episode and see I was figuring it out as I went along. And then the idea that this ends with her getting a call from the police and we find out that she has the connection to the dead guy. That's a good scene. I really like that. Rocks. I just have to get that shaped better. But overall, this scene is right. So then the next scene is not at all right. Because the next scene that I did was, and I remember making this decision and thinking about it when we were writing together. I was thinking, I want to establish the outside of the house. And in the earlier scenes at George's house, I didn't do that. And now when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, I don't want to go from Madeline in her office building lobby to Madeline pulling up in a taxi. It's going to feel awkward. And this is just one of those things that you learn by watching a lot of movies. You're going to learn that you want to cut to a different thing. Like if you're on Madeline, you want to try to cut to something, in this case, cut to the policeman and then have Madeline arrive. There's something boring about following someone step by step through everything they do. Now and then it can be cool, but when you're just setting up a story, it's actually better not to do that. At least my feeling is. And that's one of those things. This is really important. It's all instinct. It's built out of, I have seen 100,000 shows and movies. I have seen so many of them. And I've written 40 or 50 full scripts in which I've learned the pace, the process, the track that the audience is on. And one of the things I know about that track is that it can feel bumpy. It can feel sluggish. It can feel wrong if you're not shifting your point of view now and then, meeting a new character or a new location instead of sticking with the same one, even if they're going to show up in the next place. So although I have this lovely description here of her getting there, I'm probably going to rewrite it, as I said, to trade this for the police at the crime scene and she walks into it. That was my note. And then I said here, I know I wanted to establish the exterior, but maybe it's better to go to that when George is coming out of his garage. And I'm going to bold that because it is. That is exactly what I am going to do. There's a moment there when George opens up his garage and we discover that he's not this cool, groovy underground broadcaster. He's this poor, sad guy in this rundown house. That's the time to establish the rundown house. So, didn't know it when I first wrote it. You learn these things when you read it. Pika is complimenting me, so I'm going to notice that. Your approach is so brilliant. Most writing coaches describe revisions as a form of self-flagellation. Yeah, it's really true that this is really important, actually. Don't look at rewriting as fixing what's wrong. That's not what it is. It's emphasizing what's right. It's clearing out the things that aren't as right as the rightest stuff. It's getting delighted by your own cool discoveries and inventions, and then saying, that's so important, I want to help it. I want to do more of it. That's what rewriting is all about. Okay. So we're going to meet, and Elms, the cop, this scene is all over the place. This scene has some nice stuff in it, but the truth is it's way too long and it is not focused. So, on the other hand, it's sort of cool that there's this cop. I haven't quite got him yet. I don't quite have it. But I there's some good moments where Madeline is clearly in over her head. And I like the idea that that Elms can tell us a little bit about George. And then one of the things I did, and I don't remember why I thought it was so important, but down here, I got to, let's see. Okay. No, where is it? The part about him being, okay. Where is it? He's here. Huh. Somewhere in here, there's a part where I explain that about that Madeline is the next of kin, and I tell this story about how after the divorce, George made her his executor and gave everything to her. Oh, next of kin, yeah. And that was a waste of time. It's easier, it's simpler to just have it be, they were married, she was going to inherit everything, and she was going to be the one who took care of his will, and he never changed it, even though she left. That's too complicated in the version. So yeah, the twist that George made her the executive after the divorce probably isn't worth the time and legal problems. Just leave it that it was simple, you know. Anyway, I like that Elms is pissed off about the serial killer stuff. That's an interesting part of the cop. The idea of a cop who really doesn't want to have an interesting case. That's the key. I'm going to actually write down. Oh, yeah. The things you think you need to make important and later see are tangent. I wanted you guys to know that. One of the most important things about reading through your work is that sometimes you'll have something that you spent weeks on, you struggled with because it was so important. And then later when you reread it, you just said, it just didn't matter. It's just not worth all the time and trouble that you took to make it happen. So I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to say, I like that Elms is a cop who does not want an interesting case. And that he is mad at amateur online detectives. Those are the things about Elms. Elms. There, I've made a note about Elms. Hi, Matthew. And hello, I write is asking a question. Oops, sorry. When it comes to writing a screenplay, how do you manage to keep up the momentum and energy that you had when you first came up with the story idea? This is a great question. In fact, it's a question I'm going to re-examine sometime in a AMAA. Momentum. The main thing you need to know, and this is really important, you have to do it in small steps. You don't keep up the momentum all the time, okay? No one gets it all at once. So the main thing about momentum is you have to rediscover it in little packets, kind of like the way that the internet works. It's sending little packets of energy, interspersing them and sending some now and some later and trying to figure out so that it can keep a stream going. That is sort of how creativity has to work. you can't stay at the same level all the time. You have bursts of creativity, and the rest of the time you're doing craft. And then the momentum will burst out. It will catch up. It will happen. And so what you want to do is figure out a process by which you can work without inspiration, without momentum, because the process itself is cool. Like, I am going to enjoy rewriting this script because I know if I just keep finding little things that are interesting, the big momentum, the big enthusiasm will come back. It does. That absolutely happens if you are not looking to stay on a high all the time, because you can't. Nobody can do a large project and always feel the exact same thing. Doesn't work. So I hope that that helps. I will get into that more. Yes, indeed. Okay, so that's where we've gotten. Then when we meet Xena, there's two scenes with Xena and then Xena calling Mad that I thought was fun. Like, one of the things that happens when you're reading it is you get out of the moment to moment and you start to remember what's the scene. Because when you're watching something, it's moving, boom, boom, boom. It's not staying still and letting you savor every little bit. It's what you really want to know is, what is someone gonna do? What's gonna change? Who's gonna enter the scene? What happens when a new person shows up? That's the cool thing about a story. And yet when people write, they get all hung up in the details and they forget the most important thing is the dramatic action. And I think I will just remind you that there is a whole fabulous video about this called Dramatic Action. And I urge you to read that or watch that because that's really what I have to keep my mind on during the reread for a rewrite, is to say, what's this scene about? Oh, we're meeting this kind of bitter, pissed off cop, and Madeline is in over her head. That's the scene. Get it done, move on. Now, oh, she's getting this call from this other person who knows George. That's cool. Now I'm interested. What's she gonna do? The main thing I just have to do here is get to that scene. And then Xena talking to Madeline, Xena is just gushing with information about being an amateur detective. That's really important because that's a big theme in this series. And Xena is the one who's going to speak for it the most enthusiastically. I had given a hunk of it to George. It wasn't his, it's Xena's. This is where that'll happen. So my note here is basically, these scenes are right. I know when I read that scene, I know what it's about. It's about Xena trying to get Madeline on board and Madeline pushing back. That's the scene. Got it. Now I need to cut it and shape it. So that is where we are. And I think I'm going to stop there because it's been almost an hour. And maybe I'll do a little more. Okay. So Madeline and Xena talk, Madeline begins to understand that there's this element of amateur detecting clubs involved in this crime. And then she's going to push back against it. She does not want to be involved. So she gets away. And what's interesting is Xena is also Xena's consistent character move is to try and figure out what someone needs to ingratiate herself. She's constantly trying to be the best friend. And in this, she says, "Hey, I want to warn you. It's gonna hit you at some point that that you've lost someone." And then right after she hangs up, Madeline does feel that. That's a nice moment. I need to build that up a little. Okay, so let's just keep going. 5 more minutes. So meeting Norman, because this is interesting. I spent way too much time on this scene. With all of these scenes, you don't know what you're doing, so you overdo And that's okay because you can always cut it. In this case, I thought of this old typewriter repair shop, and Norman is kind of there. And I wanted to establish that the main thing is Norman has this old typewriter because he has sort of an old mentality, but he also is cool and capable because he's going to be using his phone and zooming. Well, that's okay, but the scene wasn't working when I read it. And I realized that what's not working is this old typewriter repair guy. He's kind of too on the nose for out of it. And so what I thought was, what if this is more like a young hipster shop where it's not just typewriters, it's also like vinyl, record players for vinyl and typewriters, that there's an ironic kind of how cool that people do these old-fashioned things attitude. So that's, I'm going to have to rewrite this scene to have Norman be sort of with somebody who thinks he's cool like them, but he's not. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that well, but I got it. When I read it, I was like, oh yeah, this is establishing Norman as way too out of it. And that's not really what I meant. What I meant to say was that Norman is actually kind of straddling with this borderline, with this transformation of society. And this is suggesting he's kind of an old fuddy-duddy. That wasn't my point. And then the other thing is, I did this joke, they don't make them like that anymore. Yeah, they do actually. And I wrote, although it's a fine joke, the truth is they honestly don't make them anymore. They stopped in 1986, so that's got to go. And then here, frankly, this whole scene, it's just too complicated. It's too detailed. Norman is here explaining his Zoom group. And the truth is, I just don't need to have him over-explain it. Just have Norman have earbuds and his phone, and he's doing two things at once. It's simple enough. And Norman is going to be coming in late to the hi Ann. Oh, that's okay. You are real. I mean, I am going to be shutting down in about 5 minutes, but I'm really glad you showed up. It's nice. Thank you. What we've been doing is going through the draft. I've been reading it during the day and making notes, and now I am walking you through my notes because I really, I don't think it's valuable to have people watch me read. So I read about 30 or 40 pages, and I made notes on all those scenes. So this is where we meet all the Zoom people, and one of the things that I did was, first of all, there's some things that are just not true. Like he's always at his desk. We never see him anywhere else. That I later changed my mind. But the other thing is Arvin's lines, as I was reading them, first of all, I was calling him Arvin. Yeah, cool. That's definitely, there's some good stuff in there. And don't call me sir. I'm just glad. Anyway, so Arvin, this character Arvin, who I later call by his last name, McLean. And the thing is, I originally conceived of this character as a complete conspiracy nut. And then later, I discovered that I actually wanted him to be more of like a puzzle solver. So as a result, this conspiracy nut character doesn't exist. I accidentally created him and then replaced him. So I need to create a new character. I need to add a conspiracy theorist, a new character. The other thing I realized is this group is just too small. And it would also be good to have yet another new character, which is someone who's young. There aren't enough young people in this story. And the truth is there could easily be a high schooler or someone of that age because the group, the story is just skewing too old. And I want to have more of a sense of variety. So that is where we got to. I'm going to stop here on scene 10. Here, so far, so good. that. And I'm going to change the color because I like it to be nice and bold. And I'm going to make it bigger. And now I can find it later. Okay, cool. So now I know that this is where I stopped. And tomorrow I will come back and we'll pick it up again. And by then I will have read more of the script. So with that, so sorry, Anne, that you showed up and I'm leaving. I feel it's nothing personal, obviously. It's just a matter of time. It is great that you guys are all here. I'm very excited about this rewriting process. I really feel like you're going to learn a new important part of writing, because rough draft is an important part. And you've seen more than enough of me throwing down not random, but unworked out creativity. And that's an important step. But the other steps are what you do with that stuff. And that's what we're going to start now. I'm very excited that we're doing it. I hope that you guys will tune in cool. All right. Thank you. Yeah, it is right. This is great. Thank you, Rachel. It is easy to assume that professional writers or any writers get it right in the first time. If you had any idea how hard it is to do that, and I do know some people. Thank you, Abby. I appreciate that. I do know some people who get much closer than I do. I have some good friends who simply, they work harder on the rough draft. They don't let things slide like I do. And as a result, but still, it's a lot of going back and forth and back and forth. Some people do it as they write the rough draft. It doesn't matter. Nobody gets it all right the first time. Nobody. Very, very good point. Thank you, and go write something.